Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with this week's episode of the Rogues Alley. I decided not to play the Game 5. Spoiler alert, I got destroyed by another Glorybringer Teamer Energy. That seems to be the very tough matchup for the deck. I've switched it up to Sultai rather than the Simic, as I think Sultai works a little bit better. The only thing we're running black in here for is the Glint Sleeve Siphoner, and if I wasn't cheap, I would buy some Scarab Gods. There are 50 tickets right now on MT Joe. I don't feel like spending money on the Scarab God at 50 tickets. That's just too rich for my blood, but it definitely does want to be in this deck because it has a great synergy with the mill strategy, as you can just take your opponent's cards and win with them and have an alternate win condition with the deck. So if you haven't checked out the deck tech, go over to gatheringmagic.com, and today's article will be one of my deck techs for the Rogues Alley, and you can look at the Simic version, and that'll give a more in-depth detail of how this deck actually works. Another thing that this deck could use is Hostage Takers. That's also a pretty good card to throw in the slot of maybe River's Rebuke. But River's Rebuke has been doing very well for me, that I've actually thrown all 4 of them in the main board. What didn't work for me throughout the video series was Navigator's Ruin. Navigator's Ruin was kind of a weaker card. A lot of our cards can't really attack very well. The only time that it was really good was with Glint Sleeve Siphoner, and if we could just get it to stick out. And it was also good when I used to run Long Tusk Cubs, but Long Tusk Cubs are not nearly as good as a Servant of the Conduit, as it allows you to have the energy with the Glint Sleeve Siphoner and with the Minister of Inquiries. It felt like with Long Tusk Cub, a lot of times I was competing with energy. And these are the two you want the cards to have energy for. I used to have the Shielded Aether Thief, but there's a lot of matchups where this is actually pretty bad. I felt like it was good in the control matchups and good in the aggro matchups, but it was just terrible in the mid-range matchups, as it didn't really do anything against some of the problem cards like Glorybringer or Long Tusk Cub or Bristling Hydra. It didn't survive those attacks, and therefore I think it needs to be more of in the sideboard versus the Ramming Up Red type matchups for anything that where 0/4 body is actually relevant. Navigator's Ruin is still good versus a control match, because you can I actually do like to bring in Shielded Aether Thieves versus those match, just because it's a way for us to get rid of excess energy and draw into what we need. The meltdowns are of course self-explanatory. These are probably, a couple of them are going to be cut down in the future. They're really, really good versus Ramming Up Red. Again, they're not the greatest versus Teamer. You can like neutralize a Rogue Refiner or neutralize a sort of a Long Tusk Cub. Hard to actually hook it up to a Bristling Hydra, or there's just not a lot of cards that I think are relevant. If they're running like the Thopters, the Whirler Virtuoso, it's terrible. So it's just really good versus Ramming Up, because you can throw it on Hazaret or the Crop Captain or any one of those cards and just kind of neutralize them for only 2 mana. What this really sucks against is Glorybringer. I thought it'd be an answer to Glorybringer, but Exert is still a thing, and we still are creature based, and therefore when the Exert kills the creatures, Meltdown does relatively nothing. So Glorybringer probably is our #1 card that's tough to deal with. I would say Scarab God's a little bit there too. I'm assuming Hostage Takers probably should be in the slot. Again, we'll mess around with the list. I'll keep updating it. Maybe the River's Rebuke is more of a sideboard card, and Hostage Takers should just be slammed in here. I tried this Fleet Swallower, and you can ask Zach how many swearing I was just sitting there cursing yesterday, because I wanted to record one match for a teaser where the Fleet Swallower and Fraying Sanity's combo would actually hit. And the times that I had it, like had the combo in my hand, my opponents had already scooped because they just lost the game. Or they just felt they've lost the game. Some of the scoops are kind of so frustrating because there's no way my opponents knew. I just think that I was so far ahead with Hour of Promise that a couple of the Hour Promises they scooped, but it was just so frustrating. I wanted just one game where Fleet Swallower would attack in and mill my opponent's entire library, but it was just too tough to actually get some footage of that. Fleet Swallower is just kind of a bad card in general for 7 mana for a 5/5 that mills half your opponent's library if it attacks, but that's a huge if for a 7-drop. You need to expect a lot more out of your 7-drops than just half their library. Doesn't win unless you have a Fraying Sanity out. So it's more of a 3-card combo in this deck. You need an Hour Promise of Fraying Sanity and the Fleet Swallower to really realistically cast it on a turn that combo will be potent. So what I wish the Fleet Swallower would have read is something like Navigator's Ruin. I wish it had Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attacked with a creature this turn, target opponent mills half their library. That's what it should have read, and it's kind of silly because Raid was in the set. And it didn't have an ETB effect, it didn't have a cast effect, it had an attack effect, which is very weak on a card without flash, without haste. So it needed either flash, haste, enter the battlefield, effect, cast effect, raid effect, similar to what Navigator's Rune does, just something to make Fleet Swallower actually playable. Otherwise, it's just a terrible traumatize, incredibly terrible traumatize. So I don't think that it works in this deck. So again, I'm not running a lot of removal. Instead, we're running bounce with Winds of Rebuke and the River's Rebuke. And between them and clogging up the board through the Rogue Refiners, this deck tends to do quite well. Like, you just need to start milling your opponent. The best draws, of course, are first turn Minister of Inquiries. The Hour Promise does a good job of also clogging up the board. And then you can get the Rivulets. And the Rivulets allow you to have enough deserts to start milling your opponent. And a lot of times, if you activate like one desert with the Fraying Sanities out, that's actually 8 cards. And if you have Minister of Inquiries, that's 14 cards, I believe. You can actually start to mill your opponents quite quickly. So that's kind of the theory of this deck. It's okay versus Ramming Up Red. It's okay versus some of the other aggro decks, but the more unwinnable matchups are when your opponents have Glorybringers in Team or Energy. Those are usually you can't win, especially when they get 2 Glorybringers. Again, the Scarab God can be frustrating to deal with, and the Mardu vehicles is nearly impossible for this deck to beat, because it's just really, really tough to keep up with the amount of aggression that deck runs out. And a lot of cards are just too clunky, too slow. The Meltdowns work very well versus Mardu. They're like your only hope. But having the ability to have Unlicensed Disintegration and some of these more aggressive cards than what Ramming Up tends to run, just Lightning Strike and Shock, it really goes over the top of what you're trying to do. Like, clogging the board versus Ramming Up is very, very easy to do with this deck, especially when the sideboard comes in. The other, more of the mid-range aggro-based strategies are very, very tough to deal with. Chandra is another card that's nearly impossible to beat. So this deck is a casual deck. It's not going to win you. It might be able to win an FNM if it's the meta is compliant. But what I have found about this is I have, besides terrible mulligans, I have 100% win rate versus the Abzan tokens. It's almost impossible for Abzan tokens to beat you. You'll mill them before they even have a chance to really do anything. And it's like they have cast outs, they have the angels that can come in post sideboard, but they are just too slow and clunky. And Winds of Rebuke is actually, River's Rebuke and Winds of Rebuke are brutal versus Abzan tokens. Their only hope is to really get out a Vraska, and even Vraska is slow for this deck. You mill their deck a ton, and the mill kind of can help them, but it doesn't really matter. They're just not really doing anything that is like the Fumigates are not. You don't care about them. Eventually you're gonna get the Fraying Sanities and the Rivulets, and you'll be able to mill them completely. So another surprisingly good matchup is Control. White Control is, a lot of times you can mill their win cons. We do have a Lost Legacy in the sideboard that can deal with the one-trick pony decks, and the Control and Abzan tokens have been very, very favorable for this deck, and it's fun because those are, a lot of times metas will be completely dominated by those because they are Abzan tokens does very well against Team or Energy. It also does very well against Ramming Up Red, and it also does pretty decent versus Control because a lot of the traditional blue-black and white-blue is a little bit better versus Abzan tokens, but blue-black tries to win still through damage. They're still eventually going to win through the Scarab God and Torrential Gearhulk. And a lot of times they're just too clunky against the Abzan tokens, and just the hidden stockpiles swarm eventually gets them. So yeah, Abzan tokens does tend to have a pretty big share of the meta, and this deck is hilarious when you play it against it. So again, we're going to still fine tune it. I think the Scarab God would work a lot better in this deck. I think Hostage Takers as well. I'm going to play a match just as is. We're not going to run anything else. I've thought about even putting like Duress and a few more control-based cards. What this deck really needs is another Winds of Rebuke type card where puts the top card of their library in their graveyard and does something. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot in Standard at the moment. The sideboard, we have Deathgorge Scavengers for the Ramming Up Red matchup, as well as Aethersphere Harvester, the Meltdowns, the Shielded Aether Thieves. So we're really prepared for the aggro. Navigator's Rune comes into control, and Dispossess and Lost Legacy are just kind of flex cards versus the decks that are kind of like the decks we do need to get rid of specific cards. So naming Scarab God, a Lost Legacy will come in. Same thing with if they have like the approach. Usually approach is pretty easy with this deck anyway, though. Anyway, we'll play a game, and you can see how this functions. Hopefully we get a non-Glorybringer or Mardu deck, and you can see this mill the opponent. So again, it's not nearly as bad as I thought it'd be. I thought this would just be, we just get crushed, but it was just an experiment trying to make Fraying Sanity work. Actually, I was trying to make Navigator's Ruin work, and the card just doesn't quite work in this particular deck. It's just with the cards that we have at the moment, it's just kind of clunky. So yeah. Anyway, we will get to the match. Okay, so obviously this is not a keepable hand. We have the Scavenger Grounds. It would be keepable if it was a green source with a tune. This would be perfect if that was the case, because we could go a tune. Well, it need to be like a Blossoming Marsh and then a tune and find a blue source, but we'll ship it back. And this is just as bad. I hate to go to 5. We'll keep it and just kind of YOLO for. I'm going to put this on the bottom. It's usually one of the cards you do want. But we do have the ability to cycle the Desert of the Mindful in a few turns if we don't draw into another land, and that was a perfect card. Okay, we got the Sanctum, so now we're good. So we lucked out of this. So I'm gonna go get a tune, and then we'll just grab the one of Swamp that we have in our deck. So that allows for the Glint Sleeve Siphoner tune combo, which can come back, and we also have the Rogue Refiner following it up. So if this is ramming up red, we might be able to survive. We might be able to clog up the board efficiently. A lot of times, though, it's going to be too slow until sideboard. So we'll go ahead and Glint Sleeve Siphoner, which has a 99.999% chance of dying here, as my opponent is black and red with untapped mana. No. Okay. So we get that 0.1% of it not dying. The slow gets, oh, never mind. There's the cut. I'm just wondering if this is going to be some sort of Torment of Hailfire deck. What's kind of funny about this deck too is our opponents a lot of times think they're playing against something, and it ends up being a completely, we're a mill deck. We're actually not an energy deck. But yeah, I really need to add the Scarab God to this deck. Hostage Takers and Scarab God. But again, it starts getting away from the mill. It becomes like secondary a lot of times to the win cons. But I'm thinking if you put the Scarab God and Hostage Taker in here, it actually does end up being a formidable deck. And you do have the other mill route to it. Oh, a Primal Amulet. I built one of these almost exact same deck last night with Primal Amulet. The Primal Amulet ended up being pretty bad. We're going to Winds of Rebuke it back, kind of slow down our opponent. Possibly, unless I draw like a Fraying Sanity. Scavenger Grounds is actually pretty good here. I think what we're going to do, first of all, is just a tune. I don't know if I need to Winds quite yet. Let's get rid of that last island. And we're going to go ahead and just throw out, I think a Rivulet's actually better to throw out at this point. And I'm going to go ahead and attack in. And we're going to throw back that Amulet after my opponent unloads his hand. I tried the Amulet, very similar deck. In fact, every card except Evolving Wilds was in my list that I built last night, trying to make this Primal Amulet. I had Cut Ribbons. That was the win con, was Cut Ribbons actually, and a one of Torment of Hailfire, and then like Shocks, Lightning Strikes, Fatal Pushes, things like that. And see what comes down here. Another Primal Amulet. So double Primal Amulet's kind of bad. I don't know if I need to actually wins it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cycle the desert. And uh-oh, another land. Not what we like to see. Servant's really bad here. Might actually just wins my own. Rogue Refiner. Whoops, I shouldn't use my blue there. I had searched for Azcanta in my deck as well, and it was the key card. It ended up being like 1,000 times better than Primal Amulet. My opponent seems to be very flooded, which could be a Torment of Hailfire, but we can take damage for a while here. And I'm not going to mess with anything at the moment. I'm going to wait for my opponent to try to deal with what I am doing. At least I have some aggression out. Jeez, we are drawing the lands. So my opponent needs to start using spells. So there is a lightning strike on the Rogue Refiner. And a lot of times they need to do damage to the face, so I'm happy that this is happening. Throw in a Sanctum tapped. But yeah, we are unfortunately not looking good here. Oh, geez. Trips on the Primal Amulet. That's not what you want to see with the Primal Amulet deck. So again, we'll just business as usual. Hopefully we can get a Fraying Sanities here. But we continue to draw lands. Shuffler's not broken, guys. Never is on MTGO. I'm kidding. I don't know. It seems that runs seem to happen way more often on MTGO than they do IRL. I mean, look at my opponent's board too. Trips on the Primal Amulet. Want to see one, never want to see two. I mean, I guess my opponent can copy. What point does my opponent just start using the cut? I mean, the cut can actually do a ton of damage with the Primal Amulet reducing by quite a bit. There's the Fraying Sanity. We are going to start the madness. And I want the cuts gone. This is because that is one of my opponent's win cons. So I think I'm going to throw back a Primal Amulet right now. Treasure map in here too. Okay, so there's a shock. And then after the mill occurs, we're going to exile my opponent's graveyard. I'm going to sack it to itself. We just don't want that cut in my opponent's graveyard. But we are at the mercy of my opponent duplicating a lot of things. I hate to give my opponent some more cards or even a target for the Glint Sleeve Siphoner. I could actually lose this one. I don't think I need to do the rivulet. I'd rather have another desert here. Come on, not a land. Not a desert. Again, I don't think I give my opponent a target for the Glint Sleeve. I mean, what have we got rid of? We got rid of double shocks, double lightning strikes, and a cut. However, the Torment's just going to beat us. We're way flooded out. And the sad thing about this, we're flooded without an Hour of Promise. We have no basic lands left in our deck. So any attunes we draw into are just dead. And we have almost no fast lands left. Well, yeah, we do. We have half our fast lands out. So pretty bad odds for going through 22 cards of our deck. Yeah, actually, is any of them? We even have another Sanctum. Yeah, never mind. We have another Sanctum actually in our exile from our wins. I spoke too soon. See who floods out worse. So I'm hoping my opponent has a bunch of cut in hand. Just going to cast an Hour Devastation just to cast one. because it needs the Primal Amulet to flip over. And Vraska's Contempt, yeah, I'm glad I'm not giving any. Jeez, I always just... Yeah, I have no more lands in my entire deck, so this Attune just misses. So that's all of my Attunes, right? No, yeah, 3 of my Attunes. Womp womp. None of my deserts too. One of the rest. Well, I guess I only have a few deserts left in my deck, like 2 more rivulets, but that is just crazy flood. A Rebuke would be awesome. A River's Rebuke could get rid of all the Primal Amulets, but it looks like this one's going to flip. Lysis Disintegration for the Tormenting Voice. But Tormenting Voice is going to cost my opponent a lot of cards. Yeah, we can just mill our opponent here. My opponent has to kill me this turn. Surprised my opponent didn't copy that. So we have to exile the Torment of Hailfire. And go to 17. But I'm sure my opponent has another one in hand. And it's copied 6 times. Yeah, that was ridiculous. No River's Rebuke, no anything. So it's 6, 6, 6. So 6, 6, 6, 6. There's no way I have enough cards for this. Yep, we are dead. So I guess the Primal Amulet was good when you get 3 of them, and I get a whopping all of my lands in my entire deck. And my opponent was dead next turn though, or at the end of this turn with the cards with the Fraying Sanity. So anyway, we had River's Rebuke coming up in a few turns. So we'll keep in the River's Rebukes. They're good versus what my opponent's doing. We don't need anything else. The Scavenger's okay to throw in. We'll put in Lost Legacy to get rid of the Torment of Hailfire. That's really the only thing my opponent can do that beats it. So what don't we need? Everything else is fine. I don't need to really mess with any other cards. Maybe a Servant of Conduit. I'm going to take out an Attune. We got way too many. We can bring in Dispossess too and get rid of the Primal Amulet. But this should be a very easy matchup for us, just because my opponent probably doesn't have enough cards to take out. Well, I guess they're all the removals still relevant, because it does get rid of the Glint Sleeve Siphoners, but for the most part, my opponent doesn't have a lot of things that are actually relevant for what we're doing. Maybe I don't even need these River Rebukes in here. Yeah, I think they're actually not that great. I wanted it last game, but I think I'm just going to bring in the Shielded. Oh, that's so bad. But I mean, Death Gorge or Scavenger. Maybe maybe we should put in the Navigator's Ruins and the Scavengers. Huh. Because the Scavengers are very aggressive. They're 4/3 every time they attack. Plus, I don't care about exiling Cut Ribbons. All right, so yes, we'd like to play first. Well, it's going to do it to us again. At least we got... Doesn't matter where that is, because we're getting rid of it. black source. So my opponent probably brought in like a lot of duresses, which I'm okay with. Okay, so let's see what we can draw into. Glint Sleeve Siphoner, sure, that was perfect. Good draw. And it should get Lightning Striked or Shocked, but that's fine. There it is. It's one of his win cons. There's a Rogue Refiner, so this is a very similar as last time. But that mulligan is going to hurt. We do have the Hour of Promise, though. We need a Fraying Sanities. Hour of Promise will be good at thinning out our deck. It'll give us zombies as well. So my opponent just can't just sit back with not doing anything. There's a treasure map. I'm not sure if I care too much about a treasure map. We will probably, ooh, there's a perfect card. So once we get that hooked up to our opponent, we're in great shape. Yeah, we'll throw back, the Winds of Rebuke will throw back the treasure map before it's ready to go. Because the treasure map is adding basically 3 mana eventually to what my opponent's doing. So yeah, I might need to do it next turn rather than Hour of Promise. Still haven't seen like a duress. I think if my opponent had a duress, they would have used it. Yeah, we'll throw it back next turn. I don't want that treasure map flipping over. And again, everything will cost my opponent 1 card, since they are a spell-based deck, so even a Lightning Strike or a Shock here on the Rogue Refiner will mill my opponent. Okay, what does my opponent get? Hopefully, my opponent's probably going to get rid of our Promise. I hope it doesn't get the Winds of Rebuke. Okay, good. Good. Because I think that treasure map is actually more important flipping early here. There's a Cut Ribbons. Didn't want that in the... It also gives me a Servant of the Conduit, but... So what we're going to do here is just throw the treasure map back. And we're going to spend our mana properly. There's 1 Primal Amulet. I think I might as well put out a Servant. All right, Doomfalls are pretty weak now. Duresses are pretty weak. Got rid of another Doomfall. My opponent has to go like treasure map again. Spent a lot of resources on that treasure map. We have a lot of good top decks here. And I do have these Servant of the Conduits that are pretty... Alright, Fatal Push on a Servant, which still mills my opponent another Doomfall. And we can now Promise here, so this should be game. Because we have enough mill now. And I think we'll go get a Scavenger Grounds and a Rivulet. And my opponent does have to deal with this damage too, because I believe it's 3 turns now. So these treasures are annoying with the Doomfalls or the Torment of Hailfire. We haven't seen one yet. We don't have the mana though for the Rivulets is the problem. Just another Cut Ribbons. There's an Abrade. Desert Mindful, we do want to play this because it gives us another out here. There's the braid. I think we might as well do this. There's 5 cards that are going in my opponent's graveyard. Didn't hit anything. Ew, those were terrible cards to throw away. I might Scavenger Grounds here to get rid of the 2-cut. Ribbons. I think my opponent will run those out next turn. Still haven't hit a Torment of the Hailfire, though. My opponent has 1 card in hand, though, is the thing. Navigator's Rune's actually pretty good here. And the last card in hand is an Unlicensed Disintegration, which does hit. However, that will cost my opponent another card. Ugh, a land. Alright, so Navigator's Rune actually ended up being bad in this deck. Oh yeah, the treasure map does draw a ton of cards too. So we have to race out a Torment of the Hailfire. What have we got rid of? None of them. And in response to that, we will kill our own Rivulet. And gets nothing really. And 5 cards goes my opponent's graveyard. Taking down to 18. And didn't hit enough. Wow, only 1 Torment of Hailfire hit. Wonder how many cut ribbons are in there. Winds of Rebuke is nice. I think I'll just keep that in my hand. So how much can I do actually here? I can do 4, 8. Oh, so close. I can do 8 cards. I don't have the mana. Yeah. So next turn he's dead. Because we can go end a turn. I'm not sure Torment of Hailfire does enough here. So instead of sacking a desert, I'm going to throw my own Navigator Rune back. There's the other Torment of Hailfire. My opponent has 4 cards in hand. We will untap. And that's all she wrote. And we successfully milled our opponent down. Okay. Tougher than it needed to be. Navigator's Rune, my opponent's like keeping in fatal pushes and stuff. So I think it's worthwhile. These Deathgorger Scavengers actually do seem good to get rid of cut ribbons. But again, I don't know if they're worthwhile. I'd rather just have Shielded Aether Thief just to draw some cards with my... excess energy. All right, let's hopefully not mulligan again. Ay, 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 this is ridiculous. I kind of want to keep it, but unfortunately, I think we're going to mold to oblivion. We'll keep this. And I think I have to put this on top. No, because we want another, we don't want a blue source, so I'm going to put it on bottom. If we get a Lost Legacy and get Tormented Hailfire, it's going to be really tough for my opponent to come back. But mulling to 5, we have so many lands in this deck, plus the Aethers, so we'll start off with the Blooming Marsh. And there is the treasure map. I don't know if I can erase this or not. Oh, geez, please, no. No, deck, come on. You can allow me to draw land. I guess the Desert and the Mindful is going to kick me now because the double Fraying Sanities just wins. Because I don't want to use it quite yet. All right, don't be a land here. Okay, we can get a land in the bottom there. That's awesome, man. One of the Tormented Hailfires. So it's getting us closer to hopefully a land or an attune with Aether. Yay, we find it. So, which one's actually better here? Let's Fraying Sanities or Lost Legacy. So get the one out of the graveyard. Opponent's got a Marionette Master just chilling. Oh no, that's actually going to be pretty good. We were to Tormented Hailfire in the library and Tormented Hailfire there. The opponent does seem to be a little bit mana screwed at the moment, but they have time. And that Marionette Master is actually, it's a 1 of in the deck, and that's 2 of in the deck, and that's actually tough. We didn't see it last time around. Primal Amulet, Primal Amulet, Primal Amulet. Lost Legacy of their own. Doomfalls. Yeah, so we are on a clock for that Marionette Master. Ah, oh, topped into a land and has the treasure map. I think this is good game. Oh, decides to go with the Primal Amulet. I'm definitely okay with that. All right, well, I think we'd rather have the life rather than use the... There's one. And we'll have a Fraying Sanities again next turn. Oh, tops into another land. I just can't win. The Marionette Master will kill me. And we did not want that Botanical Sanctum. Again. Fraying Sanity. But I think Marionette Master is going to kill me. Another treasure map. Yeah, we're so screwed. I need a Winds. Winds of Rebuke. That does help. It does give us an island here. We'll flash this in as well. Whoops, did I use my energy on accident? No! I'm going to keep this in my hand just in case my opponent wants to. I think we lost here, though. Drawing into lands at all the wrong times. I mean, not a lot we can do anyway. We need an hour of promise. As I think we're dead. To the Marionette Master. Ouch. So I didn't have the River's Rebuke. That'd be the one card that would get us out of this. And I got rid of it. We are just too slow. Is there anything I can draw into? I don't think there is. That's nice not for him to cast the Marionette Master because he's just relying on it next turn. Ugh, stop it, deck. The runs. Pfft. Yeah. GG. Is there any... I don't think there's anything I can draw into. Nothing. Especially with the ribbons next turn. But those mulligans were ridiculous. 2 games in a row didn't give us lands. 35. So close. Ministry of Inquiries, of course, is not going to do it. We need those way earlier. We didn't see this guy in a game either. Really good on turn 1. And that is game. Marionette Master actually wins this one. So, well, that's that. Again, we need some help with this deck. I didn't see the Marionette Master coming, so we didn't see it in game 1 or game 2, and then my opponent brought it in. But I'm getting sick of the mulligans. I think that playing today too, I've mulled every game with 1 land in hand, so it's getting quite frustrating. Anyway, this has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. You can go check out the entire video series over at GatheringMagic.com, and we'll keep toying around with this idea. I'll have all the links in the description below. Thanks for watching.